Thank you for tuning into our session to learn about leveraging new Microsoft Graph APIs to enable custom and repeatable workflows for litigation, investigations, and more. My name is Caitlin Fitzgerald, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Microsoft, focused on our eDiscovery and audit solutions. Here's a snapshot of what we're going to cover today. I'll kick things off with a quick overview of the market and pass it to the product team to share details on some exciting new features we recently released for our eDiscovery solution. Then we will be joined by Toby Stinson from Chevron to talk about how they are leveraging the APIs for automating workflows within eDiscovery, the benefits they're seeing, and how he was able to justify the investment for dedicated developer resources to support this effort. As always, we will close with some links and resources to get started. All right, let's jump right in. We've all heard the stat about how much data is growing and getting created across organizations. And because of the increase in data, there's an accelerated need for automation to support in-house eDiscovery workflows for litigation and investigations. Gartner has shared a few interesting trends. By 2025, legal departments will increase their spending on legal technology threefold. By 2024, legal departments will have automated 50% of legal work related to major corporate transactions. And to achieve this, Gartner is also predicting that 33% of corporate legal departments will have a dedicated legal technology expert by 2023. This is where the opportunity lies for developers and organizations to leverage AI and automation technology like APIs to better manage those investigations and litigations. We are all being asked to do more with less, and automation is the key to reducing manual, error-prone, and repetitive tasks. I'm excited to turn it over now to a few members of our product group to share some of the recent innovations the team has delivered for our Purview eDiscovery solution.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick Robinson, Product Manager for Purview eDiscovery. I'm excited to be here today to share a bit of what we've been working on lately.
And I'm Seungin, Product Manager for Review and Analytics in Purview eDiscovery. Welcome to our demo. Nick, what's on top of your mind?
Hey Seungin, we just had a customer share with us a situation they faced where they experienced a confidential data leak where intended, sensitive information about an AI project, codenamed Mark 8, leaked 1 week prior to the launch date. This created a time-sensitive response as now key competitors were able to gain ground ahead of the release. Now the customer in this story, Contoso, needs to discover the relevant data and respond quickly to ensure there are no more leaks. The clock is ticking, and the customer needs to complete this investigation in a few hours and report back their findings to management.
Wow, Nick, this sounds intriguing. I'm excited to dig deeper into this scenario and share how Purview eDiscovery was able to help out and what we learned in the process. Contoso has already established an automation connected to their Report It Now app that employees can use to report any questionable employee activity. Because the employee who reported the leak was also an insider who knew the topic very well, and the submitted incident report included details such as a list of other employees who were involved and the time frame of the incident, the automation leveraging the security eDiscovery APIs quickly created a case, added the relevant employees, and kicked off a broad collection to get the investigation started without any delay.
That is awesome. So checking this VS Code, we can see the app has run, created the case, added the employees, and even kicked off the initial collection to start to understand who all might have had access to the relevant content prior to the leak.
That's right. Because Contoso has already set up this automation, there is no downtime between the employee report and the start of the investigation. And when the investigator gets involved, they have a running start on gathering the haystack on the way to find the needle. Now, jumping into the Purview eDiscovery portal, where I can start to get a sense of what was going on with the communications and content around Mark 8 project prior to the leak. How much content, how many employees may have been involved, and what type of collaboration was taking place leading up to the leak.
Exactly. This collection estimate tells me top locations with relevant content around the Mark 8 project. I can see here there are some large files in one employee's OneDrive for Business that may be relevant. And given their size, I'm guessing they might be Teams meeting recordings, which would be great content to review to understand if the leaked information was discussed with a broad group.
So with this information, the investigator can tweak the query to target those specific locations, file types, and add a few additional employees that seem to be very close to the project.
That's right. This helps build confidence that the investigator is looking in the right place and has a good chance of finding the needle they are looking for amongst all the collaboration content that was created around this high-velocity project.
Once the query is updated and the estimate shows about the right amount of content, there are a couple options forward. The investigator can export an item report to learn more about the content, export the results of the collection directly with the new collection to export feature, or commit the results to a review set for further validation and confirmation of results.
You got it. In this case, the investigator needed to see the content to verify the information. So adding to the review set is the way to go. Now, because the Mark 8 team was using lots of documents for rapid collaboration, the admin can elect to include cloud attachments in the collection. And because the admin has enabled the cloud attachment version as shared policy, they can collect and review the specific version of documents in the state they were when they were shared.
Wow, this is super helpful. As we know, when people are up to no good, they are keen to cover their tracks. Seeing the specific version of documents will help to make sure that the investigator understands the content as the team was engaged with it in the flow of the project. Okay, let's jump over to the review set now and take a look at what the investigator was able to uncover. With the new team's meeting recording experience, I can see the transcript of the team meeting that was recorded as part of this project and search the transcript for the keywords that we know were part of the leak.
That is awesome and super helpful. Instead of watching the entire meeting recording, the investigator can quickly review the transcript itself and validate the content and context of the meeting to understand if the team meeting includes the critical information.
I can also see some team's conversation threads on the topic, where confidential project plans, disclosure documents, and other information was shared. I can see both the current live version of those documents as well as the version that was shared in the midst of the collaboration.
Wow, if you look closer, you can see the version that was shared has some content that says share with Fabricam that is no longer present in the current version. Perhaps someone was actually trying to cover their tracks.
Now, in this case, the Contoso investigator was able to quickly get a handle on the content. But in the case that an outside expert or SME on the content was required to review and validate the relevance of the content, Contoso could have leveraged the new guest reviewer feature to provide access for outside counsel or law enforcement to the review set specifically to really ensure that the content is the correct and legally relevant information.
Guest reviewer will be hugely valuable to organizations like Contoso and others who would prefer not to over-export sensitive content and ensure that whatever content is exported is highly relevant and required for the next steps of the case or investigation.
Now, some folks out there might be thinking, wow, I need to get access to all these premium features, but I've already got cases established in eDiscovery standard. And it's a lot of work to replicate cases and get everything set up. Is there anything we can do to help out those folks?
Yes, we have just introduced a case upgrade tool where admins can upgrade their eDiscovery standard cases to premium to take advantage of these cool new features that will help their organizations reduce risk, time, and cost associated with investigations and litigation.
This is awesome. Now the Contoso investigator can report to management. The Mark 8 AI team can move forward without risks of further leaks, and Contoso can take action with the employee who improperly shared the confidential information. We hope you found this informative and are excited to leverage the Purview eDiscovery solution and related grep APIs to automate your eDiscovery workflows.
Super fun to be able to show off all this awesome work delivered by our team back in the Microsoft Purview kitchen. Thanks a lot, Seungin, for helping take us through this. Please check out our blog to learn more. Now, we are super excited to hear from a customer on how all of this tech is helping improve their processes, manage the risk and cost associated with these types of activities. Bhavi and Toby, over to you.
Hi all, I'm Bhavanesh Rengarajan. and I'm eDiscovery Group Product Lead at Microsoft. Thanks a lot, Nick and Seungin, for those new product capabilities that we are launching. I'm excited that we are bringing in a lot of value such that customers spend less time eventually through these automations. I'm joined here today by Toby Stinson, who is responsible for managing a team of eDiscovery project managers at Chevron. Welcome, Toby. Why don't you provide a quick introduction about yourself for our audience?
Hi, Bobby, and thank you for the invitations. I'm really excited to be here and join you today. At Chevron, I wear a lot of different hats. I'm the product manager for the litigation and matter management and transactional application. And as you mentioned, I'm responsible for managing a team of project managers who are responsible for the enterprise-wide eDiscovery vendor relationships, our eDiscovery tools, litigation and preservation tools, and all the myriad processes that go along with that.
Thanks a lot, Toby. Toby, before we start, why don't you provide a quick overview of your journey with M365 eDiscovery?
Sure. So we started our journey back in 2016, where we started utilizing core, or now referred to as standard eDiscovery. In 2018, we started exploring advanced or premium eDiscovery to do our reviews and collections on some of our cases. During that, we were continuing to expand that. And then during 2021, we started kind of exclusively collecting all of our M365 data for litigation matters through the advanced eDiscovery tools. We were very heavily using the user interface and PowerShell. And then in 2022, in mid-2022, we started exploring and leveraging the APIs to automate, simplify some of those processes, which brings us to now. And our journey is continuing as new features roll out.
So, Toby, before we jump into the adoption of APIs for automation and efficiency, I would love to learn a bit about how your organization leverages Purview eDiscovery and the benefits you have found with it.
Sure. As we started, as I mentioned, we started with premium eDiscovery. Some of the benefits that we wanted to take advantage of were around the advanced eDiscovery indexing, really just to make sure we were having a complete and comprehensive collection. The second was around the data collection or cloud attachment features that to help kind of streamline, pull all of those modern attachments together into one single family of documents, both for Outlook and Teams, to make sure we had complete visibility into that. And then the third one that was the most beneficial was kind of just the conversation threads, seeing Teams conversations in their entirety or as a natural conversation rather as to single messages and chat items.
Toby, this is so awesome to hear, and we know these modern collaboration enhancements are critical for customers in this day and age of rapid collaboration and productivity. Are you also using the review and analytics capabilities available in eDiscovery Premium?
Glad you asked. Yes. We are using those to kind of help reduce our content and filter in review sets and tagging in the review sets. It's really helped us kind of avoid one of our main objectives is to not over export and kind of reduce our risk and cost when it comes to eDiscovery. I understand there's some new eDiscovery guest reviewers functionality that's coming out. I'm really excited to hear about that, learn more about that. We want to be able to kind of have our outside counsel have visibility sooner into the process so that we can make sure first we're on the right track. Also change our strategy if we need to, and go from there.
Thanks a lot for sharing a bit on this topic. Now, let's jump directly into the APIs and automation. We would be glad to learn what was the motivation to invest in APIs to automate the process for eDiscovery. And I'm sure a lot of customers are already starting this journey and they would love to learn more about how you approached this at Chevron.
There were a couple of reasons why we wanted to leverage the automation of the API processes. The first one comes down to just efficiency. We wanted to reduce the amount of work, especially manual kind of routine task that we were doing as part of a case, kind of removing that low value work from folks' plates to do and kind of optimize, avoiding potential errors, cutting down on entering information from one data source to another, kind of manual efforts there. So we wanted to make sure we were having folks focus on that high value work using their analytical skills more than just their task-based skills, kind of make sure we were getting that information.
I'm really glad that you were able to successfully automate this process and are already seeing the payoffs of doing this automation through the APIs. Which are the scenarios that you started with, and what benefits have you seen in particular?
Yeah, so we started with the case creation. So just kind of level set where we're at. We have currently over 600 cases in premium. So we have roughly over 10,000 users on hold inside Chevron. So that's 10,000 mailboxes, 10,000 OneDrive accounts. About 30% of our teams and SharePoint sites are on hold. So that was the place that was most beneficial for us to start with, the creation of the cases, adding the data sources, and then going from there. It's a lot of manual work to be done. So as mentioned, we were using PowerShell user interfaces. That's still pretty manual. So we wanted to make sure we're simplifying that, taking that work out of it. The other benefit is kind of just the squishy part of the human, job satisfaction of not having to data entry. That's pretty tedious work. So we wanted to simplify that, reduce our manual intervention into that process itself.
I think that's a very crisp way to start, so that you're basically getting all the big rocks out of your way, right? So,
right.
Let me ask you this: what are the other scenarios that you're looking at? Is there anything that you do in the collection space?
Yeah, we have some things on our backlog that we want to tackle around creating jobs. We have some legacy encryption tools that is a pretty manual process to kind of decrypt them to make sure they're searchable, remove some of that encryption. So that's kind of the next thing on our journey, is to leverage those APIs to simplify kind of creating collections specifically for a unique set of data that we can then, provide encryption keys to decrypt it in place, as opposed to kind of pulling it down, decrypting it, placing it, putting it back up. That's probably the biggest benefit and gain that that's one of the many things we're continuing to go after as we leverage the APIs that are coming out.
I'm sure there is going to be a lot of time efficiency when you do those things. Do you also see an opportunity whereby you could use the APIs to log some sort of collection details to a central database, or like how you surface this with the Power BI?
Yeah, that is something that's selfishly for myself. It's a good example of the ROI and justification of advanced eDiscovery. So, what we're anticipating from that is being able to identify custodians, what search terms were done, what volume was done, how we were able to kind of reduce that and minimize kind of the effort, prove our value to the legal teams. The other part is to kind of commingle it with other tools. I mentioned I'm responsible for matter management and preservation. So having kind of a full picture of the EDRM from those various data sizes and elements and our eDiscovery review vendors and outside counsel review cost, those are really, really exciting for me to have that insight into that data.
I think this basically brings us to an interesting space wherein, we're putting in a lot of investment in and around review. While we are making some incremental, updates from a product perspective, I want to learn, how does the automation help you in managing reviews?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a couple of things that sparked our interest, or things that we're going after most recently, and creating review sets with the APIs. I think the first is kind of to help remove false positive hits, things that were brought in from the search terms from the ESPNs of the world, the New York Times, the Law 360s, that early case assessment kind of providing with a unique set of domains that we can then automatically kind of not include as part of the review set or exclude it by tagging as part of it. So, that's going to help us bring down costs, in terms of outside counsel review spend. It's going to minimize our risk of taking data outside of our tenant into another tenant. So there's a lot of positives there that we're anticipating from that.
I wanted to actually ask you this, right? Nick and Seungin spoke about this, popular feature, the guest reviewer, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you really see that kind of playing into your workflow?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think, our mission is to try and minimize the amount of data that we need to export out from our tenant. One of the really good things that I'm anticipating is from that is being able to have guest reviewers come in either from internal or external resources to kind of, is this the right data? Having some visibility into it. Not all cases are created equal. There's internal investigations or HR matters that really, they don't need a full-blown eDiscovery review tool. They just need to have some quick early case assessments, really just understanding what is the data. So right now, having an external party come in and be able to do that in place is, going to really shorten the amount of time of getting relevant information in front of those people that need to make those decisions.
Let's close on the last scenario, the export in itself, right? What automation opportunities do you see here?
I think there are a couple of opportunities here. The first being, we have a kind of a common scenario where we have users who organize their data in kind of a specific way. And that's a lot of the information that may be relevant to needs to be reviewed by an outside counsel, and it's very quick and it's easy. And we want to get that out to the outside counsel as soon as possible. So it doesn't need to kind of go through that whole deep indexing, review, collection, culling. It's a really finite set of data. So I think that's one of them. I think the other one is kind of just to help minimize kind of the manual intervention. So reducing the time that it takes to kind of create the review set, download the review set to a local or blob storage or to a shared file, and then turn around, have to re-upload that to a service provider. So we're working with some of our eDiscovery providers and with Microsoft, of course, to kind of get that integration together. So it's an automatic push, so you don't have to have so much manual intervention, saving time, money, people's having to monitor systems of when things are done. So kind of automating those are the two most top of mind scenarios for the API exports that I'm seeing.
Oh, that's good to learn, actually. And for those scenarios where you have a predefined data set and need to export the data quickly without culling or filtering, you could use the new collect to export feature as well. And how are you thinking about using automation to help with those scenarios?
I think it's the same. I think trying to minimize that data. When you get the data in front of folks as soon as possible. So I think it's pretty much the same there.
Okay. So amazing stuff here, Toby. Sounds like there is a lot of opportunity and a high demand for developers to build out these workflows. Is there any other advice that you can offer to our viewers today?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of our lessons learned is, and it's not for those that have been in the eDiscovery space for a while, eDiscovery is kind of always evolving. There's always new data sources. There's new regulations. There's new technology. AI, Copilot. I'm very excited to learn more about Copilot and how we can leverage that in this space. A good thing to remember is this is a different skill set than the eDiscovery project manager or eDiscovery manager role. We tried that. We tried to kind of help mature or advance our eDiscovery, but it's just a different skill set. You need folks who can write code, who can create logic app, create Azure functions, use those APIs. So we hired dedicated resource to kind of help in that. Because when you try and prioritize project managers who are traditional eDiscovery project managers, that casework is going to take priority. So we weren't getting as much advancement as quickly as we wanted. So we said, all right, we're not going to make this a part-time job. We're going to make this a dedicated full FTE to help automate, use those, be proactive in getting that information up front. So I think that is probably a good lesson that these are different skill sets than eDiscovery project managers or eDiscovery analysts or specialists that people may be used to in the industry.
Thanks a lot for sharing those thoughts, Toby. And I want to let you know that, thanks a lot for taking time to join us today, sharing your insights on how Chevron, like many others, are currently leveraging the APIs and investing in this area. We are excited to see what you do next.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed the session today and gained some insights and ideas into the opportunity you have to automate workflows within your organization. As we mentioned at the top of the session, there is a huge opportunity and drive for organizations to invest in legal technology and experts like yourselves. I suggest you take a look at the resources we are sharing here to learn more about the Microsoft Graph eDiscovery APIs and all of the other cool features. To learn more about all the new eDiscovery features announced recently, check out the blog at aka.ms/eDiscovery blog. For more information on the eDiscovery APIs, check out the AKA links on the screen. Thanks a lot for tuning in.